News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Denise Pellegrini. At least 9 people have been killed after a man drove into a crowd at a Filipino heritage festival in Vancouver. Acting Police Chief Steve Rye.
At approximately 8:14 p.m., a lone suspect, subject male with one vehicle, drove through a crowded community event.
And police also say others were injured when the vehicle struck people attending the Lapu-Lapu Day Festival. A 30-year-old Vancouver man has been arrested. The department's major crimes section is overseeing an investigation, and they say they are confident this was not an act of terrorism. Police say the man was arrested after initially being apprehended by bystanders. If you're shopping online this weekend, brace yourself. You might find way higher prices. Shein Group has hiked its U.S. prices on a whole bunch of consumer goods ahead of imminent tariffs on small parcels from China. And a study by Bloomberg says the price of beauty and health products from Shein have increased by 51%, women's clothing prices by 8%. And when you look at home and kitchen products and toys, the average jumped more than 30%. All this with U.S. consumer confidence already waning. Joanne Su, Director of Surveys at the University of Michigan.
Consumers are telling us that they're really bracing for a downturn in the economy, and buying conditions for big ticket items are really poor.
Sue, they're on the Bloomberg Intelligence podcast, which you can download wherever you get your podcasts. U.S. stocks did close slightly higher Friday in another roller coaster week, though, on Wall Street. Big week coming for tech. Apple, Amazon, Meta Platforms, and Microsoft among those reporting. Investors this coming week also looking ahead to a report on U.S. GDP and the monthly jobs report. That comes out on Friday. And speaking of tech, new study says what a lot of people protesting Tesla and billionaire Elon Musk could have told you, the tech visionary's popularity is waning. A new Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs research poll says just 33% of U.S. adults have a favorable view of the chainsaw-wielding, late-night posting, campaign hat-wearing public face of President Trump's Doge government cost-cutting efforts. That's down from 41% of people who had a favorable view of Musk in December. The U.S. and Iran reporting progress in talks on a deal over Iran's nuclear program. After discussions yesterday in Oman, the two sides agreed to meet again soon, possibly in Europe. Senior U.S. administration official describes those talks as productive. Bloomberg's Arsalan Shala says the negotiations do appear to have momentum, but remember, these talks are still being mediated by Oman and are not direct talks.
The two sides are not directly meeting each other. They are still, according to the Iranian version of the meetings, they are still seated in separate rooms and only exchange notes via Oman's foreign minister.
Bloomberg's Arsalan Shala. Iran's foreign minister, meantime, cautioning key differences do remain. The death toll rising in Iran after a massive explosion at an Iranian port linked to a missile fuel shipment. More than 24 people were killed and around 800 others injured in yesterday's blast. Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky says he spoke with President Trump about prospects for peace in Ukraine yesterday on the sidelines of the Pope's funeral at the Vatican. Zelensky focusing on the positives.
Of course, totally. It's about how to bring peace closer and how was resultative, positive Paris and London. And we want to continue such meetings to bring peace to Ukraine.
Meantime, the White House calls the discussion between Zelensky and Trump productive, but President Trump also criticized Russia's President Vladimir Putin on social media, saying Putin may be stalling to avoid ending the war. President Trump, meantime, calling for a free-of-charge passage of U.S. ships through the Panama and Suez canals, renewing his focus of expanding U.S. influence over critical waterways. His post on Truth Social also turned attention to that Suez Canal. The Suez Canal cuts through Egypt to link the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Tension in Asia. U.S. forces deploying anti-ship missiles in Philippines and staging live fire drills near China hotspots. China, meantime, claiming sovereignty over an uninhabited reef in the South China Sea, according to state media. Catholic clergy and the faithful celebrating a mass for the Jubilee of Teenagers in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican today, a day after the funeral of Pope Francis. The tomb of Pope Francis in St. Mary Major Basilica in Rome now open to the public. A single white rose placed on his final resting place that said only Franciscus, the Pope's name in Latin. This is the second of 9 days of official mourning for Francis. Sometime after that period, the conclave will be held to try to decide on the next Pope. And Shadur Sanders' long wait has ended with the Cleveland Browns taking him in the 5th round of the NFL draft. Sanders sounding relieved but pragmatic.
All it is a football game to me. And that's how I view it. That's my personality, as I always say. I would say level through adversity and level through everything, any situation I'm faced with, because I know what it's going to require for me to come out on top.
The son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, seen as the most recognizable player in this draft class, he wasn't selected until the 144th overall pick. And that's news when you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Denise Pellegrini, and this is Bloomberg.